shimmers in this long-lasting dream. I'm made up in me.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Barbells to Babies. I have got Emily King here, and it is Emily, not M, isn't it? Because I feel like I say M. What do you prefer?
Do both. I don't really care.
Okay, we can do what we want.
Yeah.
I feel like Emily is like when your mum's telling you off, like...
Yeah, like real serious.
Yeah. It's like, I'm never going to call Max Maximus, like it's just not going to happen. But I do have M here, and if you do not know who M is, you should be following her, especially the mums. Obviously, it's mostly mums listening to this, but also I know a lot of my regular clients listen to this who are comp prep athletes. You should be following her also. She's a WBFF fitness pro, but also competes in figure and fitness from the research that I have done. I've watched Emily over the years and been very inspired by her journey on stage. And she also started back in the ICN and did all the different federations in her lead up. So she did her time in those, you know, natural feds, doing the hard yards. So don't assume, oh, she's WBFF, you know, that's how she got here because she did PEDs. It's like, no, She did her time as anybody does. They don't do the job for you. And she's also a mum of how old's Luke? 13? She's a month older than that?
This is 11, 12 months.
12 months, yeah. We'll just say she's one. Yeah, she's
whatever.
one. She's one. Beautiful little Luna. So this is Em's first child, and now she is in a contest prep phase for getting back on stage after having her daughter. And she's also a business owner and has some coaches under her as well. So very similar boat to what I'm in. So I thought I'd get Em on, but she's definitely probably more experienced in the comp prep space. So I thought let's bring her in and let's chat about, I guess, prep now that you're a mum. So
yeah,
let's begin with, like, I guess, where you are now. So how many weeks out you are, what show you're doing, how you're feeling in your comp prep.
So I'm 7 weeks out of WBFF Worlds, which is so that's in Vegas as well. It's a pro show, but it's also an amateur show. So there will be both there. I'm only doing figure this time. I was going to do figure and fitness because I didn't really know how much muscle mass I had lost during the pregnancy postpartum phase. But now, like, stripping it off and looking at my progress from now to compared to even last comp, I'm kind of on par in most areas. So I'd look like a fish out of water if I did fitness because I'd be way too lean and too muscular as well. So that was a good decision anyway, instead of trying to do both categories. But in terms of like where I am at prep, so this prep looks really different to me, not only just because I have Luna, but also because I started 8 weeks more than I would have ever, because I was actually not going to compete. I was kind of like, I don't know if it was like this for you, but there's a phase that I went through in postpartum where I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm an athlete anymore. And the loss of identity was really like real for me at that point in time. And then I was like, I'll do a challenge with my clients because it was a start of year challenge. And I was like, okay, sweet, cool. Like, I feel good. Like, and I felt like I was getting little beats of myself back again. And I was recognizing myself again, because it's a strange transition to go through from like athlete to mum. And then I was like, what am I now? So the challenge just showed me that like I still had those qualities in me and that I could really push really hard, and I really thrived on that environment. And then I went to Bali for 3 weeks and had a diet break over that time and a deload. And then I've come back. So I've done a longer cutting phase than I would ever usually do.
Yeah. So how long is that total that you've been kind of dieting, obviously with the diet break? When did you do the challenge?
So like 8 weeks and then 4 weeks, 3 week diet break, and then 8 weeks. So it's been 16 weeks of like pretty hard deficit. Yeah. Which is obviously doesn't sound like a long phase, but prior to that also I was tracking. So it wasn't like I went from, you know, surplus of calories to zero. Yeah. So it's just been a longer, harder prep. And maybe that's also because of Luna as well. Yeah. It's just been a bump. But yeah, so now I'm 7 weeks out and I'm just tired. Yeah. Really, you know, just exhausted. And you're obviously going to feel tired being in a deficit and training as much as we do and doing as much cardio as we are. But I think it's just the next level of exhaustion that comes with being a mum as well, and broken night sleeps and looking after a child all the time.
Yeah,
But
being
other
on
than
all the time. You can't have that like, oh, I'm just going to have a day off to just, get my nails done and chill and
yeah,
have a
lie
nap.
down.
Yeah.
And like we're so grateful that we have daycare. So we started daycare for 2 days a week, and then we've gone up to 3 days a week, which today is one of those days. And today was one of the first days that I've just lied down like on the sofa and was like,
I need a minute. Yeah, because I think you get a bit caught up in, I don't know if you're the same, but you get a bit caught up in that hustle culture sometimes of like, well, my kid's in daycare, so I need to be productive. I need to do as much as I can. And then my best friend, she's kind of going through, she's an IFBB Bikini Pro Summer. I don't know if you follow her from like years ago, Summer Bernard, but she's kind of in this new phase where I tease her now, I'm like, you're going through a midlife crisis, because she's out like surfing all the time. And she's like, she was an IFBB Bikini Pro. She was the top placed Australian ever. And now besides, the recent shows. But the thing she said to me was like, on your work days, can you just like come to the beach and like go for a swim and like even play in the water while I'm having a surf? Like you need to not just be hustling all the time and feel guilty that your kid's in care, so you need to be doing something productive. Like, did you find that a hard mental shift to kind of go like, it's okay to like spend some time on me?
100%, but I feel like I've been like this since forever. Like the hustle culture is real, right? And like it's kind of been drilled into me from a young age, like that I need to always be progressing, and that I need to always be doing something. Like I was working nursing at the same time I was doing PT, and then I was doing PT at the same time I was going online, then I was doing agency nursing on top of all of that. So like I've very rarely had a point in my life where I'm like, all right, we're just chilling now. So like these last 12 months, if anything, like it's really taught me that like we don't need to always be trying to move forward, and that is okay. And it's good to actually just step back and be like, I can do nothing today, and that's going to be progression, So I think we get caught up with like success being doing all these things, but success looks so different on everyone. Like, so my definition of success has changed in the last 12 months, definitely since Luna's been born. Like I just love being more present with her and taking things slower. So I've definitely zenned out in that way. But then there are still days, like you said, like if like today I'm like, in the back of my head, a little voice going, you should do a bit of study today. Like you should, like she's being watched. You should do like this module, or you should do that. And I'm like, I'm just gonna just stay here for a second, because I don't know if you're the same. Like by the end of the week, you're just buggered by trying to do all of the things, plus prep, plus be a mum. So I'm trying to stop myself being so screwed by the end of the week.
Yeah, 100%. I think I resonated with you in the sense of like always doing something. Like when I was studying PT, I was also doing my master's degree in dietetics. And then like after that, it was like, then I launched a food company for a bit, and then it was this, and like it's the same thing. Even this weekend, I've spent all weekend honestly like working on our postnatal program, and I'm like, said to Sean, I was like, can't wait for this just to be done. And then like he was like, don't add anything to your plate until prep is over, and I was like, okay, that's the rule. But I think it's it's I think surrounding yourself with people that help balance you out helps a little bit too. Like I don't know what Matt's like, but Sean's pretty good at being like, hey, I can see you starting to burn out, like slow down, like you don't need to do that this week, like focus on what you got to focus on. And finding you find your new friends as a mum. Have you found that your relationships with people have kind of shifted in your network as well?
I would love to say like, no, actually, I don't have a very big group of friends, and I've never had a very big group of friends. I do have like more mum friends, definitely, but I don't necessarily see them a lot because we're all busy, so my circle's pretty much stayed the same. Like I know for a lot of people it does really change, but I think coming from like more of a fitness background, a lot of our friends weren't going out and partying and things like that anyway. So it's not like we've gone out of that scene. There's obviously people that we hang out with that do that kind of stuff, but like we don't see many people. We stay in a little circle of 3 pretty much all the time and stay in our bubble. So not much has changed. Because
that was a question somebody said, what did they say? How do you meet mums in the fitness space? Which was an interesting question. I think competing, honestly, like some of my best friends have been competing. I don't know if you're the same, but Summer that I just mentioned, bridesmaid at my wedding this year. We've been friends for over 10 years. I used to idolize her and watch her on stage, and then I started competing. Now she's a judge. So she's one of my best friends. One of my other best friends is my other bridesmaid, was a client of mine who competed. I think being in that space, and then also just like I don't know, maybe not being nervous in gyms to go up and like connect with people or connect with people online. Like we don't know each other. We've never met each other in person, but we like message and talk a bit of shit throughout parenthood. And like, you know, like it's, if you're in Perth or I was in Queensland, like we would catch up, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of cool. Like what are your other tips if mums maybe are feeling a bit alone and maybe they don't have any mum friends and they want to have some like-minded people to chat with?
And that was a really big thing for me because I was like, I don't really like, you have this like weird stigma against mums groups. Like, I don't know if it was you. I was like, I don't want to go with mum groups.
I didn't go to one with Max.
I think I went to like a few and the people there weren't
your
fitness
people
related. And they weren't my people. And like, not that I'm exclusively friends with fitness people, but like they were just
your vibe.
People
like
that had a very different lifestyle to me. And I was like, oh, okay, like they were nice and stuff, but it was really hard because I was like, I need friends that are mums, because you need someone to just talk shit to or complain to or, you know, vent at the end of the day to. That's not your partner sometimes, because they also need a place to vent. And I found them in the gym. Like I would honestly just dropping Lena off to like creche. There'd be mums in there that I could be like, oh hey, how you going? Like, oh, you're looking really good, and like, how's this been? And talk about sleep and shit like that. But yeah, majority of my girlfriends that are mums I've met through the gym. And it was awesome. And then I was just like reached out and I was like, hey, do you want to go for a coffee, or do you want to, you know, go for a walk or something? And I understand reaching out to make new friends can be really daunting, but like that person's also probably looking for a friend. And if they say friends when you're in and if they say no, like who cares? And that wasn't your friend to start off with. So
yeah, exactly. And I watched my like 2.5-year-old, and she's like the friendliest little kid ever. She goes up to kids that are like 10 at the park, and she'd be like, hi, I'm Millie. And I'm like, why can't we be more like that? You know, like, hi. Yeah, she did at the shops the other day. They're like 15-year-old girls, and she just walked up and just started having a chat. And I was like, but that's awesome. So cool. Like, where do we lose that in life, where we worry about fear of judgment or, you know, somebody shutting us down? Like, I hope she never loses that. But yeah, we need to be more like our kids. And I think your kids teach you so many of these cool lessons, and which I think is amazing. It's definitely made me more laid back, and like, you know, I joke around more and have more fun again. Like, I think so life gets so serious, and that's a cool thing about having children. So let's go a little more into like, I guess, prep. So what have been the biggest challenges with this prep compared to previous ones with having a child?
I think it's just a level of fatigue. I don't think anything's changed in terms of like organization or preparation, because we do that anyway, right? Like when you're in a prep, you need to be super organized. You need to be super prepared. You need to be super structured about your week. The biggest thing for me personally has just been like, if we have a bad night, or even if we don't, it's just being constantly on, like you talked about, like especially around the toddler age when they're running into things and grabbing things, like the inability to just lie down and be like, I'm just gonna take a nap for 15 minutes or just like chill out, that's gone. So like we find it really hard on Sundays for some reason. Sundays is like the worst day because she's just so high energy and we're just trying to like chill out,
organized
to start the week, and she's like she's been missing her afternoon nap, and that really screws us up because we just want to like chill. But she's kind of, I think, getting to that age now where she can kind of watch TV a little bit, so we can put a movie on together and watch it, but we're not there yet. But yeah, like
Max won't watch TV.
That level of fatigue is the harder one. And then just when things pop up, so like if she gets sick and can't go to daycare, that throws out the day a little bit. But it's honestly like, it's a blessing that me and Matt work together and we can work from home so that we can juggle it a little bit. But yeah, they're probably two of the things.
Yeah, I think the sickness or the public holidays and the no daycare is like a big one, because it then, like for me, that's usually when I work, and you're probably similar. So your work then gets pushed back, which then can impair when you train, or you've got to then work at night, which impacts your sleep. And it's just like that kind of rolling progression in our jobs. You can't really just take a day off because your kid's sick, because clients need check-ins. So like even if you push the check-ins back a day, it's still kind of pushes out your whole week, so there's no point. So like, I don't know about you, but on the days that they're sick and I've got to do more, I just have to do my check-ins at night or get up earlier in the morning, or however it is, try to juggle. There's no way I'm getting check-ins done with 2 kids running around. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I don't want my poor clients hearing my kids like screaming in the background. But yeah, I think that's probably the big one. And I think for us, sleep, how's Luna's sleep? Because Max is going through a huge regression at the moment overnight. But yeah, that's been my biggest challenge at the moment. And
I was actually talking to a lady, and she has a 5-month-old, and I forgot how bad it was at that kind of time. Like, I think, and then like when they wake up, like even like 2 times a night or 3 times a night, like it's fine for one night, right? Like you can deal with the one night of broken sleep, but it's like the compounding that gets you. And then end of the week that you're just like screwed, and then your training's off, because at the end of the day, like you shouldn't really be training if you can't recover from it. So a lot of the times you have to skip sessions or skip cardio or whatever it may be. But Luna sleeps pretty good, like touch wood. She only wakes up like once a night, if good. That, but that's only been a new thing since she turned 1. So obviously these things change constantly. She was just sick for like a week, so that was kind of a bit like, because you don't know, like when they get sick for the first time and your first kid, you're like, is it RSV, is it bronchiolitis,
and you're a nurse, so you're like overthinking all the situations.
I know, so I'm like, oh Jesus Christ. So like it's all that kind of anxiety. But no, she sleeps pretty good, but it does knock you around definitely that first like 12 months of it.
And I think that's a big thing to consider, because even if you're like, say you've got a unicorn baby who's sleeping really well by like 6 months, and you're like, oh, I'm going to start a prep. And then, then teething starts, and then this starts, and then that starts. Like, I just don't think it's a good idea to do a prep in the first year, because I'm like, you just don't know what you're going to get. But even with Max, for example, I thought, okay, he's 12 months now is a good time to start a prep.
Will be good.
Yeah. And then his sleep turned to shit. And I was like, okay, and wasn't ready for this. But I had a chat to my coach the other day, because my coach is Scott Goebel, and we chatted about it last week, because my last week's check-in, I felt a bit shit and was like wanting to quit. And because I've been getting like 3 hours sleep a night. And Scott was like, look, you have enough muscle for your federation, for your division. Let's just taper back your training to 4 days, so there's less pressure from my 5, and let's do a little more cardio, but low intensity. So even if you feel like shit, I've got a treadmill at home, I can just roll on there in the evening.
Sit on it,
and he's like, you've got calorie room to move. Like, I'm still on like 1900 calories. So he's like, let's drop some cows, let's get you moving more, but let's reduce your training. And even if you just go in and stimulate, not annihilate, like that's the mindset you have to have on these weeks, and we'll see where we're at in a few weeks' time. So I think when you have those challenges, I think mentally you've got to be a bit more flexible in prep than probably like previous preps. Coaches before would just be like, just get it done. Like, what's your problem?
Just do it.
Just go to bed earlier. And you're like, I can't go to bed earlier, I'm trying. I think just being almost, knowing when the right time is to start a prep, which can be challenging because it is so up and down. But look, I have a 2.5-year-old now, and I swear Millie hasn't woken up in the night for like a year. Like, she's like very routine. She's not the issue, but the only time she ever wakes up is if Max wakes her up. And, normally she'll just yell out, shut up, Max, and then like go back to sleep. So like, it's fine. But so that's probably the biggest challenge, like sleep, and then obviously just fitting it in around a busier schedule comparative to before, and having less probably flexibility in your schedule, because obviously Luna, you need to do things with her at certain times of the day, feed her, all of that, get her food prepped.
Go put her to bed.
Exactly. You got to do the whole bedtime bath routine. You can't go train. Like, are your training sessions shorter? Because I know I'm very efficient in the gym.
So the thing that I do is like, I have a big whiteboard, and every week I put down like what time I do cardio, what time I do training. Yeah, there you go. The whiteboard. And what time I have appointments, and then the days that I have her, what we're doing and things like that. Because like, if I can't see it visually, I get really confused and I get like anxious about it. So I actually get up. The difference between this prep also is like, I'm getting up at 5 o'clock every day, or 5:15 to do my cardio prior to her waking. So then I can go for a little walk with her and then take her to daycare, or start her day with her, because really I wouldn't be able to fit in training and cardio on the creche days unless I go at a specific time that's a lot earlier, which doesn't, like, you have to be willing to, like you've already said this, be flexible with your approach to a degree. Like back in the day, I would have been like, I'm going to train at 1 o'clock. That was my time to train every day. It was 1 o'clock and the cardio after, or cardio in the morning. Obviously that doesn't work with creche times, because they only are at a specific time. And I have to work with Matt if I want to move outside of that. But like, he also needs to train, and then we also need to run a business. So we can't be just playing volleyball with a child all day. So it's just like being okay to move that routine around to make it work with it. But that's probably a big one too.
Yeah, I think that's a good one as well. And my thing is probably just being, it makes me realize how much I used to fluff around in the gym. Like I look at I time my rest periods, and I'm really like onto it, and like, it's prioritizing that stuff too. So, so the next big one, so challenges with sleep. I would say like mentally, what's been the big change? Like, are you feeling, because obviously when you go through pregnancy and postnatal, your body changes, right? And I know for you, and we would chat about it, we'd be like, I remember us talking after we had the kids and we were like, I've got literally no ass. Like us having those discussions about like, luckily both of us, our muscles come back very well, which is great. Because again, years of training that you've put in. And again, it's that assumption that, oh, you know, you guys look great because you bounce back. It's like, no, we did years and years of like consistency. Of conditioning. So I guess like mentally, I know that for me, I've had a longer period of time off competing versus you. Like I haven't been on the IFBB stage in 8 years. So mentally for me, it's that like, am I going to be enough? Am I going to be able to mix it with these young girls? Is my skin going to bounce back as tight? Like those sort of mental challenges that I've been playing up. Have you had any of that, like those thoughts? Because you're also a pro and you've won a world title before, right? Like
I've won a Australian title, So that was my last show. Look, I think initially I was like in a really bad space with it. And I'm not even going to lie, like even in the last couple of weeks, like just asking myself like whether I'm going to get up there and look like out of sorts, or like am I going to have enough muscle mass, as being a really big one playing in my mind. The skin thing, like I luckily, like my stomach skin didn't stretch too much, and I didn't really get, I have so many stretch marks from pre-pregnancy, like just in normal life, you know, but during pregnancy, thank God I didn't. But I also didn't gain a whole heap of weight like over my normal amount during pregnancy, right? So I have so many doubts about it, but at the end of the day, I look back, the photos are so good just to have from prior to preps to now, because I compare them all the time and be like, it's just in your head. You actually look really good, and you don't look like you lost a lot of muscle mass, because that was my biggest one. But like you said, we have years of training behind us before we got pregnant, so it's not like, you know, I didn't train at all, then I'm trying to compete on a world stage. It was only really that little bit of time off that I had postpartum, because I trained during my pregnancy all the way through because I was able to. But yeah, definitely. But then I'm like, there are a lot of women that compete at a really high level. And that's what I remind myself all the time. Like there are pro wellness IFBB like girls that look absolutely fantastic. I've got names like Franciscus or something like this. She's had like 2 kids, and I'm like, we can do it. We are capable of doing it.
Yeah, even that Australian pro, I think she only got a pro card in fitness a year or so ago. Sarah Edwards, is it? She had 4 kids? Yeah. I've got one of my clients who's like ICN Fitness, and Jack did a DEXA and was the leanest. Jackson Pios did a DEXA and said she's the leanest female I've ever scanned, and she's had 4 kids. And she was nuts. She was like 9% on a DEXA, which as we know is incredibly lean. But yeah, I think I guess I want to delve a little more into that bit, because I think this comes up for not just mums, but all prep athletes. And I have to have these conversations sometimes with my athletes where they're like, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I don't think I'm going to get lean enough. They just question themselves. And then you get the other athletes who are so overly confident that sometimes they maybe just like cruise in a little bit and aren't ready. Like, I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You want to have, I say to clients, like, you want to have confidence without ego, like you want to still have that. So what do you do when you're having those days? Like, are there any mental pep talks, affirmations, anything that you use to get yourself through those days?
I always imagine like what I want to feel like on stage and how that feels to me, not necessarily how that looks or anything like that. And I just want to feel proud of myself about what I have done, my efforts during prep. And that always leads me to the conclusion that I just have to keep moving forward and ticking the boxes off. Like back in the day in prior preps, like I've definitely like self-sabotaged by eating over or skip sessions or maybe doing a few cardio. But in my last couple of preps that have been pretty flawless in terms of like execution, because at the end of the day, if you sabotage, it comes back on you. It's your decision, and that's like the result that you get, right? Like you can't blame anyone else for it. So I just always imagine like how proud I want to feel of myself, and pride comes from executing,
doing the work.
You know, X, Y, and Z, doing the work. Yeah. So then I'm like, I just got to go, I just got to do it. But I'm just like a 1 foot in front of the other type of person. Like I just keep moving forward. Even if I'm not feeling great on that day, I know that these little efforts over time compound and will get me to where I want to be, but I just have to be consistent, and I just have to get through one more day, you know? So it's just that mindset of like, it's not worth trying to sabotage it, because that doesn't ever work. It doesn't end up well for anyone.
Like almost that not trying to get too far ahead as well. Not be like, like you're 15, like, you know, I'm 14 weeks out still, not looking in the mirror and going, oh, you're not going to be ready. It's like, you've got 14 weeks. Like that is a very long, lots of people don't start a prep until 14 weeks out. So like,
exactly.
Even not looking at people who are, say, like I had a client doing season B, she was looking at the competitors in season A and like comparing herself to them. And I was like, mate, like you haven't even started dieting. Like
exactly.
It's going to self-sabotage you mentally. So I like that, just like, showing up and doing the work, and you'll build confidence from that. And like, I always say athletes as well, if you can get on stage and look back on your prep and feel like you've left no stone unturned, then you are going to be happy regardless of the package you put up there, because it's your best package. But if you sabotage yourself along the way, then maybe it's not your best package and you could have put something better up there. But yeah, I think that's the best way to see it, because you also don't know who the fuck's going to rock up on the day. Like you don't know. Exactly. You know a bit more as a pro, but like as an amateur, you really don't know like who you're competing against, how they're going to show up. And even if you follow them on social media, it's such a highlight reel that like, it's not, they might filter things, they might do whatever. It's not, you don't know what you're going to get. So there's no point even looking at it. Exactly. And that's the thing, is like they do put up like the best photos or the best, like, I'm doing great during this. And you're like, shut the fuck up. I'm struggling here. I'm hungry. But like, but it, like you said, like if you bring in the best package that you can't be sad about like what happened or where you placed or something. Because that's the biggest thing for me, is like a lot of people go like, I'm going for a pro card, I'm going for first place. I'm like, you have no idea who's going to show up on stage. And at the end of the day, you're going to get up there, you may come second, and then you'll be pissed off at the world. But in reality, you did the best that you could have done. And that's all you can hope for, you know? So yeah, that's one big thing. A lot of new competitors I see coming through and they're like, going for my pro card. I'm like, it's great to have goals. Yeah. But it's also understanding that you don't control anyone else's actions. You don't own a pro card. Like just because you put the work in, you don't. I hate it when people also qualify for it. Yeah, or people say things like, you've done your time. And I'm like, no one does their time. You could be a genetic freak and do 6 months of prep and win a pro card. Does that mean that person's not deserving? Absolutely not. Yeah. They deserve it. They look great. So I think that's what people need to understand as well. Like this sport, whilst it is about improvement, it's not also about, you know, who's improved the most. It's who's improved enough to appease what the judges are looking for on the day. Exactly. And you get some, and unfortunately, you do get genetic freaks that might do a prep in a really short period of time and look epic. And then they also think it's the coach, and it's like, no, it's not the coach. No, like where they came from. So I think another tip is like, stay with your coach, because they know you better than anyone, you know, like that's a huge thing. So that is a huge one. But you've changed coaches this prep. So I want to ask you a bit about your coach. You're obviously still working with Mark for your programming, and then who are you working with? What's it been like? Why the shift? How have they been with you being a mum and that sort of journey of flexibility? So he's an American coach. He's called Luke Miller, and he's just really, really smart in female hormones, and it's something that I really struggled with coming out of my last comp prep. I had a huge, really bad hormonal rebound because I was so lean. I was inside out lean, and but also my bad, went on a holiday to UK after and just ate everything and didn't reverse diet. I was still active and still did my steps, but that was at the end of like a 30-week prep. It was like a very, very long prep, and I was just down with it. But I was mindful, but my hormones didn't rebound, as you would know, like your things like testosterone and progesterone really like take a dive during your prep just naturally. And I did not obviously have awareness around that, or someone or a coach that could understand that to the degree that I needed them to. And I just rebounded really badly, and not in terms of weight loss, but my hormones, my progesterone didn't increase for such a long time. I think it was like 3 or 4 months after the prep, and it was still in my boots, and I was just feeling awful. It was like, I was like, I'll never compete again, just because of the way that I was feeling. So I wanted to find someone that had a really good background in female hormones and how I could get out of the arse end of a prep and not feel like poo, and be able to back up, like, you know, possibly having another kid. So that was the most important thing for me in terms of health. And that's not to say that everyone's hormones are going to go like that. It's just because you have to realize that I was like superiorly lean for a long time too. Like I didn't hold that condition for a week. I was there for like 6 or 7 weeks. Because it was 2 shows back to back. I remember you saying you like really like quite far out, and I was like, she is so lean like already. Yeah. But you had a few shows to peak for, so that's when it's hard because you've got to maintain that condition.
Yeah, and we would end up doing like an hour and a half cardio a day. So it was just like a big undertaking for my body. And then I just wanted someone that could help me with that. So that's Luke, and he's called No Switch Fitness on Instagram. He's just super smart with that kind of stuff, and he's helping with. So we were me and Matt were doing my diet originally, just because we've done it so many times and it doesn't usually change. Like it's just like we cut a deficit, we take a little bit off, we take a little bit off, take a little bit off. But then Luke's kind of overseeing that, because prepping your partner has become very difficult for Matt.
It's not fun. No, Sean said, because I don't know if you know, but I did a WBFF prep and it was the worst prep I've ever done in my entire life. I didn't even want to put the photos up. I don't even want to like remember that part of my life because it was so bad. And it was the only prep that Sean ever prepped me for. And it was not Sean's fault. It was the fact that you should not prep your partner. This is our advice, because I was a brat and I wouldn't listen. And he would be like, you need to get sleep. And I'd be up working. And it was just like all that jazz. And then you guys have got a kid now. Like we didn't have a kid then, but my goal also in that prep was fertility. So my plan straight after the comp was to have a baby. So in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't want to get too lean because it'll affect my hormones. So it was just stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I look back and I'm like, it was the biggest mistake ever, which is
why did I do this?
But it's part of the reason why I want to compete, because I felt like it was such a bad prep that even if I only ever get on stage one more time, I just want to leave it with a good note, not a bad note, you know? So, but
so that was the reason behind getting Luke on board, because it was just someone that would really help me in that post-comp phase more than anything. And then Mark still does my training. And that's about it.
That's the kind of support network. And then you're so who else are the pros are competing in figure? So you got Belle. Who else have you got that you know of that's up in your lineup?
So I got Asha, and I've competed against Asha before in Worlds in 2019, and I came second. So this will be fun. And I don't think I've competed against Belle before. I don't think I have.
Well, she's only got a pro card. I think would have been just before you had Luna.
No, I haven't. So we've all kind of like been ships in the nights with comps, and so it'll be good exciting. It was really the reason why I decided to compete, because I was like, I have two of the girls that I want to compete against in one show. Why not? And then it all just happened.
But that's a cool mindset, because I think a lot of people do the opposite, where they're like, oh, I don't want to compete because blah, blah, blah is getting on stage. And I'm like, don't you want to compete against the best people? Like, don't you want to see like where you are in the mix? Like, and I always say to my clients, because they're like, they'll do IFBB and they're like, oh, I'm only going to do novice. I don't want to do open. And I'm like, but you're not going to know like where you stack up, and like, you may as well just do both. So I think that's cool that you have that mindset of like, well, one, we're friends, and two, like, I want to be in the mix of, you know, the best athletes in the world, which is pretty epic. So next thing I want to go into, it kind of follows on from that bit about your hormones. Someone did ask about blood work in prep. So I'm assuming with your coach now, you are getting stuff done. I actually have got a poo bag here that I need to do a stool in that needs to get sent off.
That's nice.
That's nice. So yes, I am getting mine done. I had them done prior to prep as well. And I'm sort of, you know, in the point where I'll get them done again. And then I probably won't bother till like after comp, probably from this one, because the thing people need to understand is that your hormones, like Emma said before, are going to down regulate. You can't fight that. It's part of the process. So I always suggest to clients, don't get them done straight after comp. Either wait like 4 or 5 weeks where your body's kind of upregulated a little. Because if you get them done at the end of prep, everyone's hormones are going to be in the toilet. Well, a lot of people, like if you're lean. So are you getting them done in prep? And if so, what sort of markers is he looking at the moment?
So with like bloods, I think this is an interesting topic to touch on as well, because I think one, there are a lot of people that are competing that shouldn't be competing. Two, a lot of people that don't necessarily need to look at blood work because they won't get lean enough. Like it really depends on the athlete and how you lean you're going to get. The federation,
the division,
and stuff like that. So I don't think it's like a blanket rule, like everyone needs to get bloods. For a lot of my girls that like have already what's called like not regular period. What's the word for that?
Irregular cycle.
Irregular?
Yeah.
Regular cycles, or they've had issues in the past, or there is any type of indication that they have hormonal problems, I'll get them done. If they're like someone that's everything's kind of smooth sailing, I won't really worry about it. But I got them done at the start, and then I got them done every few months, like a monthly, I think, like that. And I'm looking at like my thyroid, my testosterone, my progesterone, my estrogen, things like vitamin D as well, iron.
They're the big ones, like vitamin
they're
B,
the big
maybe.
Ones.
Yeah, like, but that's Yeah, that's the big stuff. Definitely thyroid and iron in prep, especially when your calories are getting lower because you're not often eating as much red meat, just calorically. So like getting that all checked. Because you like, I don't know if you find, do you supplement more in your preps than in your off season? Because I know I don't take much unless I'm dieting, and then I will throw more stuff in because obviously more micronutrients are coming out.
Weird, because I actually eat more macronutrients during a dieting phase. So because I'm eating more vegetables because of volume.
Like I'll probably get it. Eat a year round. That's probably why.
I'm not slack with it, but I probably like average like 300 to 400 grams my off season of like vegetables daily. Yeah. And then in my prep season, it's like 600 to 800. So majority of the time is good, but it doesn't mean that you're going to not be deficient, right? Exactly. Because our food quality is not the best.
And so just like, the volume of it as well. Like,
and I do like it on my vitamins because I get the vitamin drips quite frequently. So like the vitamin C and vitamin D and glutathione drips probably every like month during prep. Yeah. So I find that they really pep me up. Yeah. Otherwise you're quite depleted just from energy wise. And then so it was like a study done, and it was like female hormones in some study groups didn't actually repair until 3 or 4 months post, the competition date. Yeah. So like you said, it's not worth doing your blood straight after. No. Like get your calories up. Yeah. Get your sleep in check. Don't use a lot of plastics. Yeah. Drink your water. Eat your vegetables, and then get them checked if
don't go like boozing it up like after comp as well, because that will mess with your hormones as well. Like it's all that little stuff. Like I think, I always say to clients, think about the diet finishing about 6 or 8 weeks post show. If you're not even going to continue on with coaching, at least do that 6 to 8 weeks, because you can really mess yourself up. I did the exact same thing as you. My last big show was IFBB Worlds, was trying to go over there and get my pro card, came 5th and had to get top 3 to apply for a pro card. But anyway, then I went for a holiday in America again, same thing. Was like, woo, gained like 10 kilos within a couple of months, messed my hormones up, no progesterone, same as you, very similar just journey. But I had been competing back to back for like 3 years. So again, very lean like too many shows, not enough off season. So what we're saying is like, don't do stupid shit like us.
Don't be like us.
Yeah, don't be like us. We made them as mistakes, so you don't have to do them. But I guess coming back to, like Em said, blood work, only if essential. Just ask your coach, but you don't need to go spend money on something like if you don't need to get it done. Next things we'll go into, I guess, is in terms of prep postpartum. This is a good question, and like postpartum fat loss in general. A lot of mums are like, okay, when do I start a prep? Which is very contextual. There's a lot of that to that. It's like, have you been training before? Are you a first-time gym goer? Like all of those things. What federation are you aiming for? WBFF figure, or are you aiming for ICM bikini? Like very different. So when would you suggest, if let's say someone, for example, maybe they've trained for a couple of years, they've got a little bit of muscle, they've had a kid, and they're like, cool, I want to do a prep. What would be your advice to them?
So like as a blanket rule, what I'm gonna this is a very general. I don't like to see any of my girls dieting in the first 6 to 9 months postpartum. Obviously there are going to be those exceptions that are like they have their shit together, their kids sleeping, there's no issues. I trust them to be able to sit in confidently in a deficit phase before the 6 to 9 months. But a majority of the time, your body just needs nourishment and it needs rest and recovery. And I don't think a lot of women understand how depleted your body is after birth and labor and then postpartum. And then it gets better before it gets worse in terms of sleep around the 6 month mark. So I always suggest more time, and you're never going to nothing bad is going to happen from giving yourself more time in a building phase. And that's essentially what you want to do, right? Is look the best that you want on stage, not, just go do a comp just to get up on there. That's not why we should compete in the first place. You want to compete to look really, really good. And more time is going to give you that more muscular, structure to be able to be competitive. And that's where a lot of people fail at the beginning with prep, is they don't have enough muscle mass to be competitive. And then also it's not to mention like we were talking about before, things like lack of sleep and teething and, just kids being kids and being busy and all that kind of stuff. That comes into play with the prep too. So you don't want to be throwing a deficit in when you're not getting enough sleep, when your kid's sick, when all these things are going down, because it's just not worth it. You'd rather be sitting happily with high calories, just training well with a health focus for as long as you possibly can before starting a prep. So like my kind of thing is like, nah, like not even like, I found it really hard around the 1 year mark, like you probably have as well. Like, so like 1+ years, I'm going to say that.
I would say like 1.5, 2. I feel like we probably rushed it. We didn't rush. We still did our building phases, but I think we thought, oh yeah, by 1 we'll be right. I think because I was basing it off Millie and she was sleeping through the night like an angel from 10 months. So I was like, oh yeah, we'll be fine. So, but and that's my biggest advice with having 2 kids is every kid is different. So don't base it off your first child.
Your mate,
or your mate's kid, and that's the other hard thing. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think like maybe contact a coach like a year postnatally and then get their feedback, and they might say to you, yeah, cool, we need to build for another 6 months or another year. But maybe dabble with the idea around a year and then reach out and get some feedback. And then also like the divisions and federations. Like I said, like I had a mum the other day that messaged me and she's like, I want to compete. And I said, well, what federation? She said IFBB. So got to send me some photos. And I was like, you don't have nearly enough muscle. So you're going to be waiting like 2 years, or you can go do ICN if you really just want to get up there. And it's a great start point. And then we can assess if you even enjoy competing. So it's always a good way to do it. But yeah, you've got to understand the federations. I think that's a big one. I would ask you on that then, what are they looking for different wise between figure and fitness in WBFF? Obviously size. Are they going for any differences in conditioning or shape?
So figure will always have a bit more conditioning. So fitness at the moment, well, I think the look is going a little bit like softer for fitness because it was really hard at one stage. And there were actually a lot of girls in fitness that should have probably been going to figure. But I think there's a big mental thing there. Like I need to be big and huge and jacked, but like, look at me. I am not like, I look jacked sometimes, but I'm not like huge.
Same with
by
Asha.
any means.
She's not like, she looks like she's downsized a bit, if anything.
We're not big humans. We're just conditioned and we have proportionate muscle size, so that we don't have like big legs and then no upper body or vice versa.
Like wellness.
So like fitness is just a softer look, but it's still lean. Like we need to bring more conditioning to competing, period. But like it's just a softer figure, but a little bit and less muscle density. Like not like, you'll know the difference between a fitness and a figure. It's just years of training and a more dense muscle in a figure. More mature muscle,
Exactly. So that's the big change there, because it is like when you've got people dabbling in both divisions, it's kind of hard from then a subjective. And I don't know as much about the WBFF as say what I do about the IFBB, but it can be confusing for people, because I think also when people see people isolated on Instagram, it's hard for them to figure out how much muscle they actually have. And like a big thing for me is always change people about like height to weight sort of ratios. And like say for example, a IFBB bikini girl that's 160 centimeters, around that mark. I'm 164. How tall are you?
160.
Yeah, so you're a bit shorter. So say an IFBB girl might be on stage 50 kilos at that height, whereas I'm guessing fitness WBFF more like 55, and maybe figure like higher 50s. Like what is your rough sort of stage weight?
I'm probably I'll probably be like 58 on stage, so I've lost 200. But I'm short.
Yeah, so it's around that mark. And that's the way I see it, is if I'm like, a girl inquires to me and she's 50 kilos but not that lean and wants to do IFBB, and I'm like, well, obviously there's not enough muscle there once we strip the body fat off to be competitive on the stage. So height to weight ratios, knowing a good coach that understands all this shit, they like can look at you and go, yes, you've got enough, or no, you need more. Like super important. So with the other, like, I guess if is a mum thinking about competing, what would be the other things that you would tell her, I guess, to think about before delving into that? So obviously we've touched on knowing the federation, the challenges they might have with sleep. What are potentially some other challenges? Maybe they weren't for you, but maybe some of your prep mum athletes.
So like I think if someone was coming to me and they were looking at competing, like I would look at the relationship with food is a big one for me. Just understanding that like where they're at with how they view food and everything like that. Obviously it's extremely difficult to prep someone if their relationship with food is awful and they've gone through, binge restrict cycles or anything, or fad diets and things like that. So being able to sit at maintenance or in a building phase for a long period of time, like I'm talking like 9+ months, is really important to set up a really successful dieting phase. I don't think like there's a lot of people that go from not tracking at all to a competition, and that's just not the way that we should see competing at like in the first place. Like competing, we compete because we want to get up on stage and we want to win, and we're good at dieting and we're good at training. If you're not good at dieting or good at training, then don't compete.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people think that, you know, competing is like the next stepping stone after you've been in the gym for 6 months, and it's just not like that, as we know. But so like being able to sit in the building phase for a long period of time, that's like my big tip for people, especially mums, because we have time postpartum, not time, we don't have time. We have that opportunity to just be on higher calories and do that consistently.
What do you reckon about financial? That could be a big one, especially WBFF.
Understand and accept that it's an expensive venture. There's a lot of things that you can do to move around that, like getting secondhand bikinis, not having to buy them new, or just getting something that's a little bit more basic. You don't need to go over the top, or hiring dresses, or like the rego and stuff is expensive in itself. But I think just accepting it as what it is, and like going back to the whole thing, why do we compete in the first place? Like it's just part and parcel with the whole situation, you know? So there's definitely things you can move around to make it more affordable, but it will be quite expensive. And then you have flights and accommodation if you're not from that area. So a few things too.
And that's why I do say to mums, like maybe do a local show first, so that you're not having those extra costs if you may not even enjoy it. And then, you know, step into the WBFF as a stepping stone, or whatever other national feds are. And I think the other one with financial that I say to a lot of mums as well is it might not be the actual monetary cost, but it might be the fact that you have to fit in cardio training, this, that. So you may have to work a little less, which that's me. I'm not taking on as many clients at the moment, just so that I can fit that in, luckily doing the business and stuff. But if you're like, say, a PT or something, and you've got to cut back a little bit on your hours to fit your own stuff in, then that's a little bit of it as well. Or you're just so fatigued and tired in prep that you probably shouldn't be coaching more people, because you're like, I'm exhausted and I'm giving not the best service to my clientele. So whatever it is, like, it's just thinking about those things. Or you might pop your kid in daycare an extra day a week so that you can fit that in. Obviously that cost as well. So just thinking about that stuff is probably a big
I think
one.
Understanding that it is like a second job, right? It's not like a hobby that you do on the weekends or 1 hour of the day. Like, your prep is a whole consuming thing, but it's something that obviously as athletes we love to do, although we do complain about it sometimes. It is a choice. So like when thinking about prep, you need to think about, do I have time on my hands for possibly up to 2 hours of cardio or walking, an hour of training? Then I need to look at my sleep. Like, am I able to, you know, factor in like 7 hours of sleep in there? Obviously that's hard if you're a parent, but like that's like a good 3 or 4 hours of just like comp stuff in terms of training and cardio on a day. And if you don't have time for that, then it's possibly looking at, okay, when in the future will I have time for that, or when will I make time for that? Because I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like, and I've done the whole opposite. So I've been nursing at the same time I've done competing as well. And that just meant that realistically I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go train or do my cardio. And then after a 12-hour shift, I'd go have to do my cardio again. So like, you have to understand that it is not just a hobby that you can kind of pick up and put down, because obviously you're not going to do any good at it. That it is a long-term commitment that takes a lot of hours per week. So knowing that commitment is really important.
I think so too. And I think even I forgot just how much time like posing and like those sort of things. And then you might need posing lessons. So you've got to fit that in, maybe the financial cost of that. Then for me, a big one with IFBB posing, you have to be very mobile through your thoracic and lumbar for your rotation. So I've been working like getting a massage once a month, and then doing stretching, like all of this sort of stuff that, again, I didn't think about. And then, you know, when you get closer to comp, you've got to do all the body prep, the like, you know, the brows and the lashes and not that, again, then none of that's essential and you could do that yourself. I'm just not a girly girl, so I've got to get other people to do that shit for me. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be doing my comp makeup. So yeah, I think it's just thinking about all that stuff and going, does it really mean enough to you? So what would be then, to finish off, some of the positive stuff? Because I feel like we're talking everyone out of competing, which I feel like I do a lot of the time. What are some of the big positives as a mum more so? Do you feel like that you're getting from having a prep whilst being a mum?
I think this prep in particular has shown me like how capable I am and that we can do amazing things. Because to be honest, like before or like having Luna, like I was like, kids ruin your body. You know, life is never going to be the same. You're going to have to sacrifice like your dreams. Like these are things that society told us would happen, right? Or we would be some mum sitting in the house not doing anything that they wanted to do. And, you know, like all these fears that were pressed upon us. And this prep has taught me that it's none of those things. Like we can gain control of our body again. We can improve our body beyond measure. Like we are extremely capable of structuring our week and achieving incredible things, but we just have to put effort into it. And effort is obviously what a lot of people lack, but it's made me so proud, but it's also like, it's been a source of inspiration for a lot of people around me, like my clients, like that have kids as well, that they were struggling. Now they're no longer struggling because they can see that it can be done. You just have to organize yourself enough to get it done.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's a good note to kind of wrap it up on. Like there is a lot of hard, yes, there is a lot of challenges, and as long as you're aware of that, but you can be in the mindset of like, well, what is this bringing to my life as well? And I think for me, when you spoke before about, you know, going through that weird time where you're like, who am I now? What am I doing? And I think comp for you is such a big part of your life. Like, and I think it hasn't been with mine for a little while, but it's more just the athlete in me, like being able to be the athlete again. Because I went into like the powerlifting space, and before that I was a sprinter. So it was like, you know, I've always done something to do with sport. And then when you kind of lose that, you feel like you lose a chunk of you. So I think it was giving back that, I don't know the way to term it, but that dedication to yourself and proving to yourself that when you show up and do those things, like I know even Sean will say it to me, and Matt probably says the same to you, like Sean's like, you're a happier human when you train and when you're striving for something and when you're going after something, you're less like lost and confused. And like, I think it comes down to personality types, that we're obviously not the people that can just like cruise along and be like chill, like we're working on it. But it's also like not seeing that as a bad thing. Like that's obviously a part of our personality that serves us in so many aspects of life, like running a business and all of that. Like you can't be like woo and run a business, like it just doesn't work. So I think that's the cool thing about it. Do you feel like you are back to the old M King but new and improved with being a mum? Like what do you feel like, has anything else shifted mentally?
I feel extremely resilient, you know, like, and I think motherhood has taught me that, like, you can have a shitty day or a shitty week, but you still get shit done. And like before having Luna, obviously I was like, oh, I can't relate to mums because I don't know how hard that is. Now I know exactly how hard that is, and I still get shit done. So like, I know, you know, how capable people are. It's just, you know, a lot of people let themselves off very easily. But yeah, I think that's my new improved self, is just more resilience. I think resilience, and like not almost like allowing yourself to fall into that victim mentality of like, oh, but my day was so hard. And it's like, yeah, it probably was. Like we're not dismissing the hard, but it's about accepting the hard and like deciding what you want to do with it. Like, do I want to fall in a pity party that day, or do I just want to dust my socks off and go, look, you know what, today this is the best I'm going to achieve, and that's okay. That's probably a big part of it. But no, hello Matt. Just look at it.
I feel like Sean does that.
It's a big thing, because I'm like, you know, things will always happen, like shitty things will always happen in life, right? Like a obstacle could come out, your car could get hit by, like your car could run into another car or whatever, like all these stupid things. But like at the end of the day, like what are you going to do in order to move forward? Because there's no point staying here, because this doesn't achieve anything. No, exactly. Sitting in your shit just makes you stink. That's what I always say. It does not achieve anything. I say it constantly to my clients. But no, I really, really appreciate that. So I said to everyone I would keep these podcasts under an hour and get them out more consistently. So thank you so much for coming on. And I am just so pumped to see you on that stage. I'm just excited to see your costume, because that's my favorite thing about the WBFF. I was saying to Em the other day, I was like, IFBB is so boring. You get like blue or purple, whereas you guys get like, Matt's just doing a commando crawl out. You get these cool like jazzy outfits. So like, are you pumped for your sister's making a costume, and then GlamFit's making the bikini, right? Yeah. So I'm stoked, but like, it's weirdly enough, I'm not as like super excited as I used to be for some reason. Like I am excited, but I'm also excited. I'm just nervous about how I'm going to go, really. I think that's just overshadowing everything. But like, I am really keen. And my sister's made my my theme wear, so we're going to make it bigger, because in WBFF it's about how big everything. So it's pretty epic. So I'm excited. So what date is the actual comp? I think it's on the 13th of August.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that. I'm like, do I want to do Adelaide or do I want to do Perth?
Yeah.
13th of August. Yeah, we've got our wedding's the week after the Perth show. So that's why I've been like, do I want to be like shred face at like our wedding? I'm not sure.
Just like fill back up.
Yeah, well, my dress is long sleeve. Sean won't listen to this, hopefully. So at least you won't see the like, you know, the jacked arms. But thank you so much. I'm so pumped to watch your journey. And guys, I'll drop Emily's Instagram handle and website down in the show notes. So if you do want to follow her along, I suggest you do that because it is inspiring. And hopefully, well, Em will make it to the stage. Hopefully I'll make it to the stage and we can do Mama's proud. We will get there. Max, I'm just going to like tranquilize him or something soon. But we'll get
Finnegan every night.
Finnegan every night. That's what my mum said. I was like, yeah, we don't do that anymore, Mum. But anyway, thank you so much. And I will chat to you soon.